This is Sean Powers with another section of the series about artists who are past 70 years old that have been influencing people for a long, long time. I left off with interviewing Michael Fless and talking about his journey from the West Coast, LA, to Chicago, and in the car driving with him was Allen Ginsberg, Peter Orlovsky, and Gregory Corso. They were bringing a manuscript of William S. Burroughs that had been previously banned to be republished in Chicago. And so the story goes on and on and on. So, Michael, what was your experiences being on the West Coast at the time that you were there, and what were you doing in Southern California?
Well, Southern California is where I grew up, starting at the age of 7. And my mother and I were escaping from the Nazis from Holland, and we first went to New York, and then we came to Los Angeles. She was working at Lockheed Aircraft. And one of the great things she did was send me to a private school in Ojai. And I spent 7 years there. Of course, I went home for vacation, summer, and all of that, but and then sort of when I got older, getting in tune with what was going on. And I think we talked last time about the Unicorn Coffee Shop on the Sunset Strip, 1957. So I'll start out telling this great story. I was completely broke with a wife and a very young child in arms type thing. And looking all around for work. It was during the Korean War. I go for an elevator operator job that you were supposed to be there at 9. I would go at 6, and there'd already be a line around the block, people waiting for this job. So then I decided, I took my last money and I bought a car, an Austin that I couldn't stretch out on. The car was so damn small. It was one of these English sedan it was. So here's how my life began. With this baby, I decided to sleep off the Sunset Strip because I thought the cops wouldn't bother us then. In those days, I think it was a good choice. It was pretty, they were fairly wealthy people living in that area. So I'm walking up the hill with some dirty diapers, trying to think about, I don't know what I was going to do with these dirty diapers to clean them so we could go on and take care of our kid. And I ran into a friend of mine coming down the hill. His name was Jim Baker. And he said, "How you doing?" And I said, "I'm broke. I'm looking for a job." And he says, "Well, I can give you a job as dishwasher." He says, "I can't pay you much, but you can have all the food that's left over." This was a restaurant. Give you all the food that's left over each night. And I said, "I'm into it." Okay, so we go to the restaurant. The dishwasher's place, he has a huge sign, maybe, 4 feet by 2 feet above the dishwashing thing. Any job worth doing is worth doing well. So I washed the dishes very well. And in the meantime, we have the chef making the meals. It was called the Aware Inn. The Aware Inn. And pretty soon, Jim got into a tussle with the chef, who was a co-owner as well. And he tried all these other guys. I had meantime graduated to be the salad chef. And after he went through about 6 guys, I said, look, Jim, you know how much I need this job. I've been watching everything the chef has been doing. I can do it. And if it doesn't work out, you can just fire me. Okay. And I did learn it all. I mean, it was, how could you say, it was special dishes, you know, the same thing on the menu. In those days, we were selling a hamburger for $5, but it was special beef from something fed, corn-fed animals, blah, blah, blah. So Jim knew that his job, this was Sunset Strip, right? His job was out in front with all the celebrities and movie stars. Oh, and they used to come back and in the kitchen with me and eat, so that they wouldn't be bothered for their signatures up front.
Like who?
Huh?
Like who, for example?
Oh, let's see.
Just throw some names out.
God, I can't remember their
Okay.
names. They were, you know, B movie stars, if you want to call them
okay.
that.
Right.
I mean, probably, you might remember their names, but they were.
Right. Random people that were actors that were making movies
That's
at the
right,
time.
yeah. Johnny Depp was one guy that was around on the scene in those days. Any rate, so here I am, the chef. Believe it or not, I bought a house in Laurel Canyon for $18,500. Well, I was paying off on it, you know, down payment, and then paying every month the mortgage, something or other. So I like cooking because it's like music. There's a rhythm to it. Da, 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 da. Even the boss, I said, don't bother me, Jim. I got 5 orders I got to do. And in comes this guy, Herbie Cohen, who later became the manager of Frank Zappa. That was much, much later. I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years later, at any rate. So Herbie said to me, how would you like to have a bookstore? And I said, oh, I would love to do it, but I got to make as much money as I'm making here because I'm paying off on a house. Don't worry about it. I'm giving you the whole business. There's $3,000 in the bank for you. Da, 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 da. I said, okay, let's go.
Why would he ask you?
Why would he ask me?
Yeah.
That's good. I had a reputation for being an intellectual. We knew each other from, he was a far out dude, sending guns to Cuba, sending guns to Israel. And, oh, he backed Odetta in the old days. And who was that famous, Lenny Bruce. That was another one of the guys. You know him, Lenny
Yes.
Bruce? Yeah. It's the things that Lenny would say would make her hair stand on end, you know, the language that he used. And also the great story they always tell about him is he carried all this big book around with him, all the laws, when the cops would bust him because he was, you know, strung out on smack. He would look through, oh no, you can't arrest me on this and this and this because it says, I always remember him getting into a cab with the cops with this big book. Any rate, so the name of that place was the Unicorn. It was on the Strip. And what Herbie did, this, remember 57, it was funky. Old couches and the kind of things you would see in somebody's house who didn't have much money type thing. And what it meant was the kids would go in there and relax, put their feet up, and there was no liquor. So, and my scene was upstairs in a place not much bigger than this, but So I was telling you earlier, I was inspired by Lawrence Ferlinghetti up there in City Lights, and I had all of the so-called quality paperbacks. They're not the 25-cent sex type of paperbacks, but these were the more genteel literary, type of books. And because it was a Sunset Strip, I opened at 8 o'clock at night and closed at 4 in the morning. And all those people from the Strip would come after their shows. Oh yeah, and Mort Saul, one of the comics there, he gave me my nickname, John the Bookie. And they all these, I think I mentioned to you, it just ruined my marriage because there were so many beautiful women coming in to the place. So here I am in this little tiny place upstairs. Oh, Les McCann was playing the piano downstairs, and he always wore holsters with cap guns in them. Cha 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 cha. I mean, you couldn't get away with it nowadays, I don't think, but he was having a good time. So, yeah. And so I had a certain reputation when I say it ruined my marriage. But fortunately, that house that I bought up there, as always, I ran it as a communal thing. There were all kinds of people living there, and my wife, her name now is Anya. In those days, her name was Betsy. But she was painting outside, and there were a lot of other women basically sitting outside painting, painting pictures, if you want to call them that. So, yeah.
And because of the bookstore that you ran, how long did you run that store for? Shop?
About 6 or 8 months, I think.
6 or 8 months, and in doing that, you also met a lot of maybe the upcoming poets.
Yeah, that's right.
And including Jack Kerouac and who else? Allen Ginsberg.
Well, yes, but that scene was a little bit different. See, in the back of the Unicorn was this amazing outdoor area with a big avocado tree, and every Sunday I would bring, quote, spiritual leaders from all over LA to come and give raps to the young kids there about whatever their trip was, Buddhism or whatever, And I always remember one of these Japanese Buddhist monks. All these kids were, 15, 16, 13, because there was no liquor there. And the monk all dressed up in his thing, and he didn't go up on the little platform to give his talk. He just walked around talking to people, But all kinds of people, vegetarians giving their rap and everything. And any rate, very quickly I opened a second bookshop up off Hollywood Boulevard. And I don't know how, I got a phone call from Chicago. Hey, we need your help. They won't let us publish our magazine. This is the Chicago Review from the University of Chicago. They're going to ban our magazine. We were starting to publish William Burroughs. And so I forget all the sequence of everything. But at any rate, I went back there. We took what was going to be in that magazine, and that's when Kerouac gave us the name for the new magazine, which was Big Table, which is now sort of a collector's item. And one of the guys in our group went on and published it, Big Table 1, Big Table 2, Big Table 3.
Big Table in reference to maybe a lot of people conjoining at one spot.
Well, yeah, a big table mean including everything. That's what it meant. Where all these people were sitting around this big table, and they were all, Where was that? That was so cool. Yeah, it was it Spain? That's right, just before I left from Barcelona. And it was a big table, all these guys, and everybody's eating, and then one guy is at the head of the table and he's reading his new novel. Yeah, so that's big table.
Was it a critique?
Huh?
A critique? Was it a critique? Was it a critique? Like the
A
people
critique. No, reading his own poems that he had written. Is that what you mean? Yeah. No, he was reading his own stuff. No, it wasn't a critique. No, that stuff was, that was for the literary magazines. That didn't interest us really so much, critique. No, it was these
acceptance.
poems and stories and photographs and paintings and things like of that nature.
And then there was something about a road trip that you went from the West Coast to the East Coast to meet them. You
Oh yeah, so that was called, you get the LA Times, you look in the classified section under transportation. And the scene was that some of these people would, let's say, buy a new car in New York and then drive it to the West Coast, but they didn't keep up their payments. So these guys that owned the cars would pay us to drive the cars back to New York where they belonged. And yeah, so that's often how we got back and forth. We would do that. We did that quite a bit till it got to be it was a kind of a macho scene. Non-stop. LA to New York, you know. Oh, it was get there faster, but it became like a psychodrama, especially the women. After, you know, we packed the car, there'd be 5 of us at least, sometimes 6, driving, and oh yeah, and my boyfriend did this, and crying, and okay, hon, just take it easy now. Maybe we should all stop and get a coffee or something like that. And yeah, so that's how we would get back there somehow. So, any rate, I went from almost a brand new MG there in LA and doing good with the money, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly, this is where Allen Ginsberg found me a place to live. There on the Lower East Side, $35 a month, what they call a railroad apartment. And man, what a scene. I can tell you in 2 words, it's in all the books, the Cedar Bar. And that was located just outside the village. That's where we would all meet. Even met Franz Klein and Wilhelm de Kooning there. They treated me like I was a 4-year-old kid, but they were, you know, they were drinking a lot, and that was the Cedar Bar was where we were all meeting. And oh man, I'll tell you, I worked at the 8th Street bookshop there in the village, and my house, where I lived, was on the Lower East Side, so I walked right from the village across to my place, and there was a kind of a restaurant bar. It was a big place, and Coltrane would play there at night, but he didn't have any place to play to practice during the day. And the owner said, "Hey, John, no problem. Nothing's happening in here during the day. Come in with your guys and you can practice in here, you know." So I would drop in there, just get a thing of beer, you know, and listen to those guys play. And they were just rehearsing, but it was such a thrill for me as a kid, you know, saying I was a kid, hear these guys sitting in one table over from me, rapping about whatever they were rapping about, that was it really turned me on. So yeah, that was LA to New York, and yeah. So any
Well,
more questions?
thank you for that was a lot of information. Really, no, that was enough for today.
Good.
And I'm really glad that I made it here today because I even had this note, or you wrote the note telling yourself, Sean, at 2 p.m. here. And we have been at Michael Fless's home up in the forest.
Can walk this wide world over, but you never find a good man.